Hello, YouTubers. Here's my name is Raul 1111, bringing you our Reverend Lieutenant Colonel Gregory L. Peck here with us a little bit to talk about what's ahead. What are we doing? Well, just to give you a little head start, I think we're suing your government. Let's start with that. How about that?
Not zero. It's the usurpation government. It's not our government. It's the government that they created while we weren't paying attention.
Correction. I agree. Couldn't agree more.
So,
This
anyway,
is just the idea, you know.
Yeah.
The
Well,
deception and
I don't.
misconception of
I don't think it's
being properly governed.
the illusion that we have is that everybody knows and everybody's heard that there's a Constitution, but nobody understands what the Constitution is and what it says and how it's supposed to be administered. The Constitution was not designed to limit us. It was designed to limit government. People don't understand that the government is not here for us to bow down to and to rule us. The government is here. They work for us, and they are limited in the way they're supposed to work for us. So that's kind of how that is supposed to be done. They are now, the buzz phrase is the deep state. Well, back in my day, we called it shadow government. And what it really is, it's nothing really that's new. It's been around for about 147 years. You don't get to this level of deception in a minute. This level of deception, it took decades for them to slowly, methodically put the American population to sleep.
Yeah. Okay, we have a lot of different groups of people that are currently overlooking these ideas that for many will be something new, be a wake-up call or a complete reversal of it all. This is going against mainstream, well-trained, even educated people. Unbelievably, he covers us all.
Yeah, we have been duped. I don't know a better way to say it. We've actually been duped into thinking that we're free. If you got to keep telling somebody they are something, it don't take too long before you figure out that you probably aren't what you're telling them they are. The way it's supposed to work is we're supposed to be able to live our life and in our liberty in the pursuit of our happiness, in the pursuit of our property. And yet they have managed to, at every turn, deprive us of life, liberty, and property. Okay? If you stop and think about it, you think you own a house. You don't own a house. You're just basically renting it. You'll never actually own the house. And even if you do pay it off, you cannot hand it down to your children or to your heirs, because you can only do that so many times before they take it back anyway. And then you pay property taxes, which is totally, absolutely against the law. It's against the Constitution. You're not. How do you buy a house? You buy it theoretically. We'll get into how that even happens. I don't know, but you theoretically buy it, and then the county comes along and says, "Oh, you owe us taxes." Well, who is that? What does that remind you of? That reminds you of who? The king? Remember in the old medieval days? You may have a farm over there, but you had to pay the king taxes because it was his land. Well, guess what, folks? The reason you don't have an allodial title for your property is because it belongs to the king. You don't understand. And it's not the King of England.
You know, it works also in a similar manner when you purchase a car.
Yeah.
You purchase an automobile, and you never get the title of ownership.
No, you get a pink slip of registration.
DMV makes a copy, throws away the original, and keeps a copy for himself, giving you.
Yeah, and you got to pay. You got to pay your registration fee. You got to pay your license fee. You got to have a driver's license because they tell you it's a privilege. Well, let's see. When was the last time that was also done? Oh, I remember when the king was the king. You had to pay the king and get permission from the king to be on the king's roads. But you see, here that's a little bit of a problem because those roads out there are supposed to belong to the people. And the fraud that they created, and I know there's a lot of people on the internet that understand this whole concept of driver's licenses and registration, all that is a fraud. Okay, that you don't need that. I got news for you. The last time I had a driver's license was 1973. That's been a minute. And you know, and some of the other brothers know, I get pulled over. They have a conversation. They go back to the computer, and the computer will tell them, "Do not detain." And have a nice day, and I drive off. You only need these things if you're engaged in the pursuit of commerce on using the public roads for your own private gain. Then you need permission because you're engaged in commerce. But in 1966, they ruled that the people were the enemy of the state. And then that's when an automobile went to being a vehicle. People, look it up. Definition of a vehicle. Federal definition. A contraption pushed or pulled by mechanical means engaged in commerce. And they trick you. Can I have the papers and registration for your vehicle, please? And you say, oh, sure. You're admitting tacitly or passively that you're operating a motor vehicle because you said, yes, here's the papers. If they say, how many passengers do you have in your car or in your motor vehicle? And you say, I got 4 passengers. Well, you're admitting that you have people that are paying you to take them someplace. It could be your family and your kids. They're not paying you, but they've tricked you into saying that. Never mind the fact that if it's a police officer for some city, like here in Los Angeles, we have the Los Angeles City Police Department, right? Well, the Los Angeles City Police Department says right on their cars, we're here to protect and serve, right? But does anybody ever ask what they're supposed to be protecting and serving? I got news for you. It ain't the people. They're supposed to be protecting and serving the corporation. After all, that's who they're hired by. They're not hired by the people. They're hired by the corporation. Their boss is the CEO of the city, the mayor. He hires them. He has a commissioner of police that he hires or fires. And they're there to protect the city, to protect the corporation. Never mind, how can you be a citizen of a corporation? Never mind, why would you be a citizen of anything? People don't understand. I'm a citizen. Really? You're a slave? You don't understand. In Roman law, a citizen is a servant, is a slave. I'm not a citizen. I'm a sentient being, sovereign man party, we the people. See, the difference between myself and most that may be listening to this is 68 I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of and for the United States of America against all enemies, foreign or domestic. The 13th Amendment tells you that an attorney cannot hold public office. Really? Every public office, everyone in Congress is an attorney. According to the 13th Amendment, they can't hold public office. The real reason that they're upset with Mr. Trump being president is because he's not an attorney. He's not trained by the bar. The bar goes back to the king's bar. He had to have permission from the king to be at law, or to be practicing law. Did you know that there's no such thing as a license for law to practice law? Did you know that their bar card is not a license? The bar is a private company, a private agency. It's not connected with any state. Just like the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It's a private bankers cartel, banking cartel. If anybody would read the stuff I have served and the stuff that's in the federal courts, there was in 1968 the Federal Reserve was ruled unconstitutional. Every time you use a green piece of paper and pass it, you're actually committing a felony because you are engaged in the trafficking of counterfeit currency. Constitution, only gold and silver. What's really even more amazing, it costs more to print money for the monopoly game than it does to print money for the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve pays 2.3 cents, that's 2.3 pennies, for every piece of paper, regardless of denomination, whether it's a $100 bill, a $20 bill, a $5 bill, doesn't matter. $500 bill, doesn't matter. It is 2.3 cents.
Wow.
So when you hand somebody a $20 bill to buy a loaf of bread,
just a few cents.
all you really do is giving them 2 pennies, 2.3 pennies. Because that's what it costs. There is no value. And then you think about it, you go buy a car. How did you buy a car? With what?
Yeah.
You go buy a house, and they're going to give you a loan on the house. Ask for an audit. Where'd they get the money? What they do is they say, oh, you create, what you do when you fill out an application, people just don't get it. When you fill out an application, and they say, oh, we got to check your credit, and we got to make sure that you're good. And, oh, and you're wringing the hands. I hope I get the house. Oh, my God. What you don't know is they make sure that you got a way of looking like you're going to be able to do something. But what really happens behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, pay no attention behind the curtain. What really happens is that paperwork that you created, they submit to the system, the Federal Reserve System. And then the Federal Reserve System, some banker someplace, enters that number on a ledger entry. It's just written in the book. Nothing of value comes from it. They don't take money out of investor accounts at the bank. It's just a number entered in the book. And then they call up the Treasury to print that much money, to print that much paper, it's not money, to print that much notes, and then they give you those notes. So you've exchanged real value property and received paper promissory notes in return that are worthless. I have been in court where a person pretending to be a judge has fined me money for being in court, for being a traffic ticket or whatever it was. And I've asked them, what would you like me to pay you with? In court. And they said, well, yeah, I would hold up the green pieces of paper. You want these? And they'd look at me and say, well, yeah, that will take that. Really? It's worthless. How do you pay debt with debt? Federal Reserve note. What's note mean in the banking world? That's a promissory note to pay you something of value at some point in time in the future. It is absolutely worthless. It has no intrinsic value. It's a Ponzi scheme. It is actually called fiat money. So you're out there busting your hump for nothing. Do they tell you it's worthless? No. They got you convinced that it's lawful tender. How can it be lawful tender when it's not worth anything? I mean, seriously, folks, how can something that's not worth anything, that nobody has any value in, be worth something? Probably the only truth that Bill Clinton ever said when he was president, probably the only truth he ever said in his entire life, was that everything's built on the full faith and credit of the American people. What does that really mean? Everything's built on the stupid gullibility of the uninformed American people. And you're right, I just called most of the American population stupid because they don't get their head out of the sand. I was going to say the other end, but they don't get their head out of the sand to understand what's going on around them. How does a corporation have any jurisdiction over a sovereign man? The Constitution, the preamble to the Constitution, which gave us our citizenship or gave us our nationality. Don't use the word citizen. Your nationality is the Republic of America, not the United States capital letters America. That's the corporation. Look it up.
It's in all of our documentation.
Yeah.
Cap letters.
Yeah. Your driver, your everything that's got a capital letter. Did anybody study English language in this country? The only time you use capital letters in a noun, a name, is if it's a corporation or that person dies. Here's the real fraud, and I know there's people out there, oh, the birth certificate. Here's how this works. 1666, the King of England says everybody is missing at sea because you're all born at birth, right? So now that you're missing, they created this thing called probate. Because you're missing, we have to protect your estate till you're found. So then they create a document that's a birth certificate. Think about the word certificate. It is authenticity of ownership. Okay, so now you get this certificate. You get this certificate from a corporation, state of Colorado, state of California. How is it a state of California when the flag says California Republic? How did a state become a republic? How does that work?
Perhaps we're talking about two different
things.
Or more, I don't know.
Well, you can look it up. State of California, 1849 Constitution. Then 1879, another Constitution. Wow. 30 years, they had to come up with another Constitution. Isn't that amazing? Then you look at the United States. Original Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? Upper and lower case letters. 1871 comes along, February 21st, 1871. The District of Columbia passes the 1871 Act. Oh, that's nice. Where it says that the District of Columbia can engage in contract, i.e., they just created a corporation. Because a republic can't negotiate a contract because nobody is in control of the republic but us. And in order for the republic to enter a contract, every member of that republic would have to sign the contract. Well, that's could be kind of 350 million people living in the United States, and we all got to sign the contract. That might take a minute. Far better to have District of Columbia able to sign contracts through their CEO and their board of directors and their in-house legal judiciary to make sure everything is under color of law, looking like it's legal. You understand how this works, folks? The president's the CEO. That's why he can write executive orders, because he's a CEO. You don't get it? That's why Trump's a perfect president, because he's well experienced in running a corporation. The rest of these idiots don't know how to run a corporation. All they know how to do is be the best liar and thief they can be, because that's what lawyers are, liars and thieves.
Puppets as well.
Right. And their whole job is not to serve you. Their whole job is to serve the corporation and to make sure the corporation's profitable. That's how come they got to pass new things every year to make sure that they can get money from you.
Okay, Reverend. Now, this has been hell of an introduction. Just for people out there, YouTubers, browsing around and just bump into our video here. Let's just put into perspective what we have ahead. Now, I know personally, I know what you're doing in the courts lately. You've been relentless, and I know you're gonna have some results pretty soon. I hope that people listening to us can actually follow our progress and be part of it. Why not?
Well, let me give you a little more sample of this. Last Monday, well, actually a week ago yesterday, I filed a writ of mandamus in federal court, removing a federal judge from a case because he showed bias.
A lot of people may not know what
a writ of mandamus is. A writ of mandamus is a demand. That's what mandamus. I'm demanding. Okay. A writ of mandamus is to demand correction. Okay. In this case, a judge is supposed to be impartial. So anyway, I filed this writ of mandamus. I show up in court on Monday, this past Monday, and we have this little conversation. I don't address the gentleman there in black. I don't address him as judge. I don't address him as your honor, because he hasn't established that he's a judge, and he hasn't established he's got any honor. All he's doing is sitting up behind a table, a bench, what they call a bench, in a black robe. So I don't know who the heck this guy is. Everybody else seems to think he's a judge, but he hasn't proved that to me, because he's got to have a signed oath of office. And what's that oath say? He's got to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not color of law statutes for a corporation. So he's violated his oath of office already, even if he had one, which I doubt that he does.
Not a lot of people ask
Because
for
why
that.
would you think about it? Why would a judge sign an oath of office when he knows damn good and well he's not going to be able to obey it? Because they know that they're not administering the Constitution, they're administering the rules of a corporation. Okay? He's not really a judge, he's an administrative hearings officer. But here, let me show you how this works. I write and I put in, and it says, it's going to be on the internet, hopefully tomorrow, so you can read it. And it says, writ of mandamus. Translation, a motion. It's not a motion. I'm demanding that this guy be removed. But they say it's a motion. So apparently when you go to the bar and you pass the bar, you learn they unlearn your ability to read, because nowhere on that document does it say motion. A motion is where I'm asking the court for permission.
Either
I'm not asking
they
them.
Want you, or they don't want you to be able to engage in that language.
Well, that's right. If you're not a member of our country club, bar member, a bar card's not a license, by the way. But if you're not a member, you don't have any standing. You can't be in here. What's the matter with you?
My understanding is that bar, it's
that's where you walk in and order Jack Daniels or something, right?
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But I think it's I don't know, a little bit sour.
Yeah. That's it.
The
Well,
taste
you
of
get
that.
it.
Because bar comes from British register accreditation,
Yeah.
or
That the
no, British accredited registry or something like that.
the bar was originally created by the king. Okay, and when you went to the king's court, okay, you had to have permission to engage in the king's court. And that's how the bar, King's Bar, was established. The king would approve of just a few people that could come in and talk to him about whatever the problem was. And so then they came up with all these rules and all that stuff of how the bar is supposed to work. So everybody could talk in the same language. Got nothing to do with law, has to do with process and procedure. So process and procedure circumvent the law. So it doesn't matter what you put. If you say, well, this is the law, that doesn't matter. When you go to the bar and you study to be a lawyer, you don't study the law. You study how to follow procedure. They don't know anything about the law. That's how come they got to separate everything and find rulings and find law and then put it in their little case and say, well, it looks like it must have been this one. You know, and then they get up, and then the judge sits back and goes, well, let's see, who do I decide is going to win today? If you're a private person and you're going up against a corporation, 99% of the time the corporation is going to win. Why? Because that's how the game's rigged. We were sitting there in court on Monday, and here's Amazon. The attorney's for Amazon. He's looking real sharp. And here's the attorney for this poor sap that's trying to fight Amazon. The judge is making jokes with the Amazon attorney and telling the guy that's supposed to be the attorney for the poor sap that's being screwed by Amazon, tough shit, making jokes about the stuff he's putting into the court. Now, of course, they don't use a language like tough, whatever, but bottom line is, I can tell you from watching the 35 minutes of watching that exchange, that attorney that's representing the plaintiff suing Amazon has got a snowball's chance in hell of winning, because it's already been decided that Amazon's going to win, regardless of what they did, because they're the corporation, they're the money, and it doesn't matter what the little guy's got to say.
You know, it's funny, Rev. I know people that may go to court just for amusement. Because it's a circus.
It is. It's just. It's a joke. The judge is sitting up there cracking jokes.
It's a court of. It could be a court of tennis. Because they throw the ball one side to the other. And you listen. You listen to the exchange, and it's. Do you people even know? Do you even listen to what you're saying? It doesn't make any sense. They're talking about. At one point, they were talking about whether or not the period was in the proper place in a sentence for it to have the correct meaning legally. How would they know anything about legal, much less the English language? I'll bet you $10 that none of them know what a dangling participle is. That's something in English. The point being, it's just it is an illusion that you're getting justice. Well, we tried. We were in court. You paid me a lot of money to lose. Because Amazon, I guarantee you, is going to win that case. The reason I know Amazon's going to win the case, because the judge and the Amazon attorney were making jokes about the attorney for the guy that's trying to fight Amazon. Does that sound like they're unbiased? Does that sound like that judge doesn't already have a decision already in his pocket? You got to understand, there is no way that you're going to win against the corporation. That's why. Now they say that a corporation has the same standing as you or I. How does a piece of paper have the same standing as a human being? I am a sentient being created by God. So how does this government we created somehow have the ability to now
rule over us? How does the created become greater than the creator? But I imagine that there are those that believe that at some point in time they're going to be God. I guess that's okay. You know, I know some people that have tried that, ain't worked out too good. Probably ain't never going to work out too good. Ain't never, there's a good statement. But the point being, wake up. I have hope and faith that America is finally waking up. And the reason I have hope and faith that America is finally waking up, because what happened in 2016 was a miracle.
Now,
Absolute miracle.
This has been a hell of an introduction. But what about if you just present what we're doing right now, let's say in your court cases, just briefly describe what we're doing and what we're going to be talking more about it in upcoming videos.
Well, the one case that we have is a case of fraud in a real estate transaction. And the reason that there's a fraud in the real estate transaction, to make it very simple, you have a property that was mortgaged, right? And it was a reverse mortgage. That in of itself is questionable, but it was a reverse mortgage. And the lender, Seattle Mortgage Company, loaned money in this reverse mortgage, supposedly. But in a contract, all of the terms and conditions of the contract have to be known to all parties of the transaction. And you're never going to guess, but Seattle Mortgage failed to tell the principals that they weren't getting anything in exchange of value. They were putting up real property which has value. What did they get back for that real property? Nothing, because they were given Federal Reserve notes that have no value. How do you pay back a debt with debt?
More debt.
Good question. How do you pay off a debt with debt? So if they didn't disclose that they weren't giving any value in exchange for the value received, that's not transparency in the contract.
Right.
You're being defrauded. You're giving up something of value for nothing in exchange.
Now, this I love this chat, particularly on this issue. I think we can have a video with people that have similar problems.
Anybody that has foreclosure, oh please, get in touch with me. Put a stop to foreclosure.
What else? What else can we do?
Well,
can you help somebody with child?
Well, we right now are working.
Services?
There's that you brought that up.
Okay, well, I'm just giving you ideas.
Here,
tell us what else can we do.
Okay, we have some people. There was a disagreement at a job, and the person went and got an attorney to fight for their rights at the job, because the people at the job had violated the rules of labor laws, and in retaliation, these people filed phony charges against this family, and the sheriffs at 5 o'clock in the morning, without a warrant, kick in the door with CPS, Child Protective Services, right behind them. They arrest the man and woman for 36 hours, long enough for Child Protective Services to take the 4 children out of the home. And all of this in retaliation because she was standing up for her rights in labor, for the labor thing, and she's also pregnant. And now they're threatening that when the baby's born, they're going to take the baby from her. because they've decided that she's an unfit mother. Why? Because she dared to try and assert her rights. And it's quite complicated. I'm right now, as you know, writing the federal lawsuit to go against the acts of the Child Protective Services. And the lawsuit's going to be $50 million, $10 million per child and $5 million for each parent. The attorney, it's amazing to me, the attorney said, the attorney that's helping her with the labor thing, he says, well, you can't do that because children have no rights. They don't have rights until they're 18. Really? Really? I know of a lawsuit. You out there, you women's libbers, hold on to your pantyhose. I know of a lawsuit that was won. In that particular case, a guy and a girl were cohabitating, right? They were shacking up. They were living together, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant others. You know, they've been together a couple of years. Everything's going fine. She either decides or something, you know, one thing led to another. She gets pregnant. She's debating back and forth with her boyfriend, significant other, about keeping the baby. He wanted to, oh, that's exciting. We can start a family. She's going, yeah, but I got my career. So she finally decides, it's my body. I'm going to get an abortion. He says, well, I don't want you to have an abortion. She said, too bad. My body. I do what I want. So she throws him out. They break up over it. So he goes and gets a restraining order, gets an attorney, gets a restraining order. Are we still on? Good?
Yeah, we're good.
Gets a restraining order, and he sues her. And one of the criteria of the suit is the constitutional rights of the child. That ain't the embryo, that ain't born yet. Constitution protects and secures life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'll bet you the pursuit of happiness for that embryo was to be born, not to be murdered. Right? The baby is alive. It's got a heartbeat. It's alive. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. She says, I've got the right of my body. Sorry, wrong answer. When you allow joint tenancy of your body through intercourse and the deposit thereof of sperm, you became joint custody of your body. Hello, you women's livers, are you listening? You accept the donation and you get part ownership. He had as much rights to that embryo as she did because it's his seed. Hello, life doesn't come from the female. Life comes from the male. Try having a baby without a guy. Life comes from the sperm. We fertilize the egg. You are nothing but an incubator. That's the way the court ruled. He not only stopped the abortion, forced her to have the baby, but 3 months after the baby was born, the ruling, he got full custody of the kid because she wanted to kill it.
Amazing.
I'm half tempted to go after Roe versus Wade because that embryo has got the right to life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and happiness. I'll bet you that embryo is not real happy when it gets ripped out at 8.5 months.
Boy, that can be a...
Never mind. Look at the trauma that those 4 children that got ripped out of the home.
Yeah.
And here's one of the. I can't really discuss because that's the case. But
it's an ongoing case.
Yeah. Then look at Mueller. Just think about this for a minute. Every day, Mueller and the Russian collusion, about 2-3 weeks ago, I filed a treason case against Mueller, Comey, and Rosenstein. All of a sudden, you don't hear so much about the Russian collusion thing. I charged Mueller, Rosenstein, and Comey with treason. Why? Aiding and abetting the enemy. They went to a foreign spy, got lies and propaganda from a from a hostile government, produced it into a dossier, used that fake dossier to get FISA warrants to spy on an American citizen. What part of that is not treason? Treason is aiding and comforting the enemy. You aided and comforted Russia in their attempt to affect, and it wasn't Trump that was committing collusion, it was the FBI and the Democrats committing collusion. What part are you people not paying attention to? Hello? Then it just, and you wonder, everybody's, the deep state is not just a New Deal. He mentioned, Raul mentioned that I am a retired lieutenant colonel. I spent 25, 30 years in intelligence, special ops, going around cleaning up messes that never happened. I know, we used to call it the shadow government. When I first started, it was God and country. It didn't take me very long to figure out God had nothing to do with it. Then it didn't take me much longer after that to figure out the country had nothing to do with it. What we were doing is we were going around sanitizing big mistakes that we shouldn't have gotten into in the first place.
Serving different interests.
Yeah. And all for the corporate good. That's why in my career I changed the way I did things and said, okay, if we're going to do something, I want to see not just orders being told to me. I want to see where the evidence is that this particular situation has to be taken care of and cleaned up. If you can't show me that, don't call me. So that's how it's been around forever. They've been slowly, but you think about it. There's another case that we're working on, and that's a traffic case, and everybody knows, that's on the internet, knows you don't need a license, you don't need all that stuff. But we're doing another traffic case. So, folks, you got to understand, we have the power, not them. And I don't really understand people that take to take an oath to protect the Constitution. Maybe the problem that I had is I actually read it. I think a lot of these people out here that are carrying guns and badges never read it. Because if they did, they'd understand the difference between common law, which is a constitutional law, and statutes and rules of a corporation. They would understand when they're watching a judge under color of law, which, by the way, is illegal, under color of law charging somebody a fine for a driver's license that they didn't need in the first place because they weren't engaged in commerce. Hello? What part of this do you not understand? That sheriff that's standing in the courtroom should have walked over and arrested the guy in the black robe because he was engaged in a felony. He was extorting money from a private citizen. Hello?
Right.
That's my fault.
Maybe that's
one last thing. Look up the Hobbs Act. It's against the law to take a right and convert it into a privilege and then charge for it. That's the law. What do? They take a right of travel, convert it into a driver's license, and charge you for it. That's against the Hobbs Act. Hello, look it up. It's all there. There's nothing new in heaven and earth. You can do it.
True.
You want to put an end to this? Tell you what, Maxine Waters, congratulations on your 10 people showing up for your big rally, you idiot. Just a sidebar. You want to put an end to this? Real simple. We could put an end to all of the confusion in a week. We're coming up on a holiday. How about this, America? How about everybody take a week off? No school, no jobs, no movies, no grocery store. Everybody stay home for 1 week. Sure, that might be a little bit of a cost personally. You might lose a week's pay. Most of you got paid vacation anyway, so just take a week off. But we got to do it in unison. Stand up united. Why do you think they get guys like Soros to keep everybody divided? Black Lives Matter, Pink Lives Matter, gay this, transgender that. Why do you think they do you think all these school shootings are accidental, or do you think that they're programmed? I know for a fact the one that started all this mess, the one that happened several years ago in a McDonald's where some deranged military vet was suffering from PSD and they drugged the piss out of him and he went into a McDonald's and shot everybody up. That was the beginning of gun control. And that was all staged. Anyway, the bottom line is they are systematically stripping you of your rights. So the way to stop is don't participate for 1 week. I give you 9/11. When that all happened, or didn't happen, depending on what you think, when that all happened,
unknowingly people,
everybody went, and everybody stayed home for a few days. They did, oh my goodness, everybody was in shock. What happened next? You had celebrities, you had presidents, you had congressmen, everybody begging you to go back to work. Go back to buying and selling. Why? Because if you stop, you stop the flow of the credit, of the fiat money system. It's got to keep going. Think about this. Back when I was a young man, they charged you interest when you bought a car. Then when they were running out of people that had the money to buy a car, they stopped charging interest. Heck, you can go buy a car for the last 20 years. You can buy a car, interest, no interest, you know? And sometimes you get first 6 months free. Why? Because they got to keep you buying. They got to keep you buying on credit. Your credit scores. Folks, I'm going to admit something publicly. I do not have credit. I have never had credit. I don't even have a credit card. Wow, that's amazing. I don't have. Maybe it's because my dad was Scotch-Irish, and he taught me if you wanted to buy something, you went and bought it. If you didn't have the money to buy it, don't. Don't look at it if you ain't got the money to buy it. Simple. Answer me a question. If you don't have the money now to buy it, what makes any sense of going into debt and then paying interest on the money you don't have, which makes what you wanted to buy even more expensive than it was to begin with, putting you in a deeper hole to begin with? That does not make any kind of sense. And then the other side of the equation, if you owe somebody something, then how can you be rich? A rich person is somebody that doesn't owe anybody anything and has got something in the box afterwards. So if you're in debt, how is that wealthy? Seems the more you're in debt, the poorer you are. Right? I mean, it's just maybe I've got this reverse logic or something. Never mind the fact that I happen to have a PhD in mathematics and it doesn't make sense. If you can't buy it now because you don't have the money, then why in the world would you buy it after you put it on credit to cost you even more money you don't have? Never mind the fact you didn't have money in the first place because it was all fiat money, fiat currency. Every time you give somebody a $20 bill, a $1 bill, a $100 bill, every time you give them, oh, I left it there, doggone it. Every time you give them a bill, you are engaged in a felony. You are trafficking in counterfeit currency. 1968, Federal Reserve was ruled unconstitutional. Poor judge, 2 weeks later they assassinated him. You want to know the secret about Kennedy being assassinated? He wanted to do away with the Federal Reserve. You want to know why they tried to kill Reagan? He wanted to do the same thing. The reason they got rid of Bobby Kennedy, because he wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps and do the same thing. The reason they got rid of Kennedy's son was because he was posed a threat of becoming president, and they went, yeah, because he knew what his dad did. They don't want you to know what the truth is, because the truth will set us all free. Everybody start talking to everybody. Here's how this works. I'll tell you, mathematically. If you pick up the phone and promise me you're going to call 2 people and get them to promise to call 2 people, and everybody keeps their promise. Every person, you talk to one person, ask them to call 2 people. They pick up the phone, they call 2 people. Each one of them promises to call 2 people. How long do you think it would take for everybody that has a phone to be reached in the United States? How long do you think that'd take? For one person to make a call, well, just start off with one person. One person make a call 2 people, then they call 2 people, then they call 2 people, then they call 2. How long do you think it would take to call everybody that had a phone? If the phone system could hold the weight, if you didn't overload the phone system. How long do you think it would take?
I don't know, a month?
45 minutes.
Is that all?
Yeah. See, it's like the penny that doubles. When I was teaching math, the first kids would walk into the classroom, the young adults, college, they'd walk into the classroom, pop quiz. Oh, first day pop quiz. Babies. Anyway, and it was oral. Okay, pop quiz. I will give $1 million today, or a penny that doubles for 30 days. Who wants the million today, and who wants the penny that doubles for 30 days? And guaranteed if I had 30 students, 20 to 25 of them would, I want the $1 million. The ones that said, no, I'll take the penny, those students I moved to the front of the room because those students I could teach. The rest of them were stupid. Because $1 million is $1 million. It's worthless because it's all that fiat stuff, but that's beside the point. But the penny that doubles every day, that's like $8.5, $9 million in 30 days. The first few days, 4 cents, 8 cents, but you get to the back of that, hundreds of thousands. It's now you're doing it, right? So the payday is at the end of the thing. And that's the same thing here. It's mathematical. It's geometric. So you pick up the phone. You guys want to do... You look up my name on the internet, and you'll see the lawsuits. You can read them. We have 160,000 or something like that views. Very succinct. We're going to put the writ of mandamus, that's going on tonight or tomorrow. We're a little bit delayed in doing that because I haven't got around to it because I'm writing this case for the Children's Protective Services, which that ain't. And that's also got a racial thing because this is a white family that 2 women of color are tearing apart, making it up as they go along. Knowing that all the people were detained long enough for the children to be taken out of the home and then released, no arrest, no charges, no nothing. It was strictly to get them out of the home long enough to have a case of action against the children because their parents were arrested. And then there was no charges brought against the parents. And then there was no warrant when they went to arrest them. They kicked in they used a battering ram to break the door at 5 o'clock in the morning, guns out, took the children, arrested the parents, 36 hours later, released the parents with no charges. Did they return the kids? Oh, no. Now the kids are going up for foster care, for foster homes. They're going to adopt the kids out. Not that I would play the race card, but you have 2 social workers that happen to be of color, and they're tearing apart a white family. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Black Lives Matter. Thank you very much. And I know that there's going to be somebody out there going, oh, see, that's that white guy saying that. Well, guess what? I'm not white. This, for edification and enlightenment, see this? This is white around the edge. That's white. Does that look white to you stupid people? I get very upset when you're a white guy. No, I'm not a white guy. I'm just as tan and beige as you. Look, see, we're tan and beige. You know.
I think I'm lighter.
Yeah, you're a little bit lighter. Oh, does that mean I'm black? I'm darker than you are.
Mr. Beck. Okay.
Gotta have fun with this, folks.
We're going to wrap it up here. We've been having a 1 hour introduction.
It's supposed to be 5 minutes, right?
A lot more to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be back pretty soon. Hopefully, we can get more people to subscribe, and why not join the chat on the right below.
Yeah, my number's there if you want to call me. Yeah, but I don't play well with others. You may have figured that out by now. But anyway, it was nice seeing you again. I'll see you in a couple of days. And we'll
stay tuned for more.
Yeah.
More news.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, this is a disguise. This isn't really the way I look. I was thinking about getting one of those obnoxious anonymous Macs. If they really wanted to be anonymous, I mean, why do you got to be afraid? Just stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Till next time.